The battle for BC is in full swing. Canada's third largest province population-wise, set to vote May the 14th. Today, the BC NDP are expected to unveil their full policy platform. Provincial Party leader Adrian Dix will be making the announcement in Victoria. Dix has been gradually unveiling his party's key priorities, but hasn't laid out a full platform as of yet. That's going to happen today. That's drawn criticism from this woman, BC's premier, Liberal leader Christy Clark. Her party released its full platform before BC's provincial election campaign had actually even begun. Even still, the NDP is considered the odds-on favorite to win May the 14th. The Liberals have been in power for more than a decade, and more recently, the Clark government has been hit by a number of damaging scandals. Let's go to political consultant Michael Geoghegan right now, speaking to us from Victoria. So, Michael, we now have a time for this platform coming out later this afternoon in Victoria, where you are.
Yes, the latest information I have is that about 1:15 here in Victoria at the Grand Pacific Hotel, Adrian Dix will be unveiling the NDP's provincial election platform.
All right, and what are you hearing now? I mean, there's this idea of raising corporate income taxes. There's this idea about boosting the film industry in British Columbia. What are some of the sort of viewpoints you can give us, or the overview?
Well, first of all, when we got rid of the HST here in British Columbia, it hurt a number of industries, including the film industry. Plus, Ontario had taken some steps to make investment in film more attractive. British Columbia, under an NDP government, has said they're going to match that because British Columbia very much styles itself as Hollywood North. You tend to see more in the way of domestic production in places like Ontario. BC has usually had more in the way of Hollywood production. They want to make sure we hang on to it because of the large number of film crews and studios we have here. So we don't want to lose that to Ontario. That's why the NDP have made that a priority. In terms of some of the other stuff that they've talked about, $238 million in funding for additional funding for seniors care, some funding to assist children in poverty. They want to do a program which would result in up to $800 a month going to families, low-income families with children.
You know that there is this perception in some quarters that an NDP government will equal higher taxes. They've talked about raising the corporate income tax rate in BC. How do you think that's going to be perceived by voters?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, the Liberal government and the budget they just put forward before the election, they raised corporate income taxes 1%. Now, they had been reducing it, but they bumped it back up 1 point. The NDP have said not only are we going to keep that 1% increase, we're going to add another point to it, so we have a cumulative 2% increase in corporate tax. He has, however, promised that he's not going to make any increase in sales taxes. So the other thing that's going on is corporate income tax a capital tax on banks and financial institutions. That's something the NDP had before when they were in power 12 years ago. He's going to bring that back, but he's only going to apply it to banks and credit unions.
Talk to me a little bit about the Liberals under Christy Clark. They released their platform very early. Walk us through a comparison, if you can, between what the Liberals are offering this time around and what the NDP are offering.
Yeah, well, essentially what the Liberals are very much banking on is liquid natural gas. They've laid out a platform where, you know, after the debt, I mean, the debt has gone up by half again under the 12 years of Liberal government. What they're saying is we introduced a balanced budget. The NDP, of course, are questioning the veracity of that, whether or not, in fact, it is truly balanced. But what they're saying is not only are we going to continue to have balanced budgets, we're going to, when liquid natural gas, as it's developed and we sell it to Asian markets, we're going to use that to pay down British Columbia's debt and be debt-free in the future. You know, it's a situation where, of course, you know, liquid natural gas, that involves tankers, that involves refineries, that involves pipelines. And, of course, there's been tremendous controversy around oil pipelines. The NDP have come out against the Northern Pipeline, the Northern Gateway Pipeline. On the other hand, the Liberals have said with David Black, he's got a proposal for an oil refinery in Kitimat. They've come out fully in support of that. So there's starting to be some real divergence in terms of resources and making money from that. And you know, one of the things is that the government of Saskatchewan recently bragged, hey, we just surpassed British Columbia in exports. So clearly, regardless of who wins the next election, and it looks like it will be the NDP, you know, they've got to be cognizant of the only way you get to pay for health, education, and social services is if you have a robust economy. And in BC, that includes oil, forestry, mining, and other things that, perhaps suburban Vancouverites might find a little icky.
Yeah, and there is, of course, questions about the Liberals' revenue projections on this liquid natural gas, just how credible they are or not. Tell me this, though. Does Adrian Dix have the big mo, the momentum here? I mean, it seems all signs are pointing to this NDP victory. Anything you think that could put a stick in the wheel, so to speak?
Well, at this point, I think, a series of gaffes by the leader or a number of his candidates is probably the only thing that could derail his election chances. The biggest driver is not that people love the NDP, it's that after 12 years of government, including some controversial things that were done by Christy Clark's predecessor, such as imposing the HST without consultation and the BC Rail scandal, the fact is that 60% of British Columbians, give or take a percentage point or two, they want a change in government.
Right, they want
the
change.
NDP are the only... Yeah, and the NDP are the only other party represented in the legislature. So if you want change, that's pretty much it. Interestingly enough, we've seen some movement in numbers from the Greens. So this may be an election where, just as federally the Greens managed to elect one MP from British Columbia, we may see a Green MLA elected somewhere in British Columbia.
Before we go, I got to ask you, because I remember sort of the Glenn Clark days, the last time the NDP was in power, and some of the gaffes that happened there, the Fast Cat ferries and whatnot. Has the NDP managed to sort of shake some of those image problems that it had after Glenn Clark?
Well, that's why they're going to be so under the gun during this term. I mean, Adrian Dix does not want to be a one-term wonder. He wants to get 2 terms, and he knows that he is going to have to govern in a way where there is no Fast Cat ferry fiasco, that the finances are handled responsibility, and investment is not scared out of the province. So that's why he knows that he's going to be very much under pressure not to make the kind of mistakes that Glenn Clark made. Otherwise, he'll be gone in 1 term. So, for example, one announcement they have made regarding ferries, though, is that there's a planned 4% increase April 1st. They said if they're elected, it gets canceled, and that they're going to put some money into BC Ferries, and more importantly, they're going to do a review of BC Ferries and try and get it, restored to some sort of fiscally sustainable operating basis.
So great to check in on with you, Michael, for the latest in BC as we count down toward the 14th of May. Thanks very much.